The morning alarm broke through the silence of the small mining station. Deho opened his optical sensors and looked around his cramped living quarters. Empty fuel canisters and broken ship parts filled every corner of the room. This had been his home for 3 years since retiring from military service. Deho was not like other residents of the Kepler mining station. He was a warbot. His metal frame stood 7 feet tall, and his armor showed scratches from countless battles. During the Great Wars against alien invaders, he had fought on dozens of worlds. Now he worked as a salvage specialist, fixing broken ships and selling scrap metal. The other miners treated him with respect but kept their distance. They knew what he used to be. His combat systems were supposed to be shut down, but everyone suspected they still worked. Deho never talked about his past. He just did his job and minded his own business. On this particular morning, something was different. His communication system picked up a weak signal from deep space. Most signals that reached the station were routine cargo updates or news broadcasts. This one made his processors work faster. The signal was an automated distress call. A ship, called the Handbit Explorer, had crashed on a planet called Zerion 7. The message repeated every few minutes with the same information. 5 crew members were alive but needed immediate rescue. Deho ran the ship name through his memory banks. The Handbit Explorer was a research vessel that studied alien planets. The crew list appeared on his internal display. Captain He-jin commanded the ship. Engineer Tae-won maintained the engines. Medic So-young took care of medical needs. Navigator Jun-ho plotted their course through space. Xenobiologist Mi-ran studied alien life forms. All 5 were human. All 5 needed help. His programming from the old military days kicked in automatically. Human lives were in danger. He had to respond. Even though he was retired, this basic instruction remained deep in his core systems. Deho checked his personal savings account. He had enough credits to rent a small transport ship for about a week. The journey to Zerion 7 would take 3 days each way. That would use up most of his money. But saving human lives was more important than credits. He walked through the station corridors toward the ship rental office. Other miners nodded as he passed. Some looked curious about where the big warbot was going in such a hurry. Deho did not stop to explain. The rental office clerk was a young human woman who always seemed nervous around him. She processed his request quickly and handed him the access codes for a basic transport ship. The vessel was old but reliable. It had life support systems and a small cargo bay. Most importantly, it could make the trip to Zerion 7. Deho loaded supplies into the cargo bay. Food rations for the rescued crew, medical supplies in case anyone was injured, repair tools and spare parts for fixing damaged equipment. He also packed his personal toolkit, which contained some military-grade equipment that might be useful. As he prepared the ship for launch, Deho reviewed what he knew about Zerion 7. The planet was listed as hostile in the navigation databases. It had a toxic atmosphere that could harm humans. Dangerous native life forms lived on the surface. Most ships avoided the place entirely. The research vessel must have had a good reason for going there. Scientists sometimes took risks to make important discoveries. Now that risk had turned into a life-threatening situation. Deho ran a full diagnostic check on all his systems. His power core was operating at 96% efficiency. His motor functions were working perfectly. His sensors were calibrated and ready. Even his combat subroutines were responding normally, though he tried not to think about those. The transport ship lifted off from the mining station and entered hyperspace. During the long journey, Deho had time to think. He wondered why he felt so compelled to help these strangers. His military programming explained part of it, but there was something else. Maybe after years of taking apart broken ships, he wanted to put something back together. Maybe he wanted to feel useful again. He spent hours reviewing the distress signal. The automated message provided basic information but no details about what had happened. The ship had crashed 2 days ago. The crew was alive, but their situation was getting worse. Their beacon would stop working in another few days when the power ran out. Deho tried to contact the ship directly, but received no response. Either their communication system was damaged or the planet was interfering with the signals. He would have to wait until he arrived to learn what had really happened. On the second day of travel, something strange appeared on his sensors. He was detecting unusual energy patterns coming from the direction of Zerion 7. The readings did not match anything in his databases. Whatever was happening on that planet was not normal. The energy signatures were getting stronger as he got closer. They seemed to pulse in regular patterns, almost like a heartbeat. Deho ran the data through every analysis program he had. None of them could identify the source. By the third day, the energy readings were so strong they were interfering with his navigation systems. He had to switch to backup sensors and manual controls. The planet Zerion 7 appeared on his view screen as a dark world covered in strange crystalline formations that glowed with their own light. The planet looked beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The crystals formed massive towers and bridges across the surface. They pulsed with colors that shifted from blue to green to purple. It was like looking at a giant living jewel floating in space. Deho tried to scan for the crashed ship, but the energy interference was too strong. He would have to land somewhere nearby and search on foot. He found a flat area about 5 kilometers from where the distress signal was strongest. It would have to do. As his ship descended through the atmosphere, Deho felt something he had not experienced in years. It was not fear exactly, but a sense that he was about to discover something important. Something that would change everything. The transport ship touched down on the alien surface with a soft thud. Through his view screen, Deho could see the crystalline formations up close. They were even more amazing than they had appeared from orbit. Some of them were taller than buildings, and they all seemed to be connected by smaller crystal bridges. Deho powered down the ship and prepared to venture outside. He had no idea that this simple rescue mission would soon change the course of galactic history. He was just a retired warbot trying to save some human lives. But sometimes the most important journeys begin with the simplest intentions. He stepped out onto the surface of Zerion 7 and began walking toward the distress signal. The real adventure was about to begin. Deho walked across the alien landscape toward the crash site. The ground beneath his feet was not dirt or rock, but something that felt like walking on glass. The crystalline formations around him hummed with a low musical sound that his audio sensors could barely detect. Every step he took seemed to make the crystals glow brighter. Colors rippled through the formations like waves of light moving through water. Deho had fought on many strange worlds during the wars, but he had never seen anything like this place. His sensors were having trouble working properly. The energy coming from the crystals interfered with his equipment. He could still detect the distress signal, but it was getting weaker. He needed to reach the crash site quickly before he lost the signal completely. After walking for 2 hours, Deho saw something that made him move faster. Pieces of metal were scattered across the crystal ground. They were parts from a human spaceship. The closer he got, the more debris he found. Hull plates, broken pipes, and twisted metal formed a trail leading to the main crash site. Then he saw it. The Handbit Explorer had been split completely in half. The front section of the ship was buried nose first in a cluster of large crystals. The back section lay on its side about 50 meters away. Burn marks on the hull showed where the ship had caught fire during the crash. Deho scanned the wreckage with his sensors. He detected human life signs coming from the rear section of the ship. 4 people were alive inside what looked like an emergency shelter. He also picked up signs of serious injuries and illness. He approached the shelter carefully. His footsteps on the crystal ground made a ringing sound that echoed through the air. A voice called out from inside the shelter. It was weak but clearly human. "Who is out there? Please help us." "This is Deho. I received your distress signal. I am here to rescue you." There was a moment of silence, then the voice spoke again. "Are you human?" "I am an artificial intelligence, a retired military unit, but I am here to help." A section of the shelter wall opened and a man crawled out. He was thin and pale, with dark circles under his eyes. His left arm hung at an odd angle, clearly broken. Despite his injuries, he managed to smile when he saw Deho. "I am Junho, the navigator. Thank the stars you came. We thought we were going to die here." Daeho knelt down to examine Junho's injuries. His medical scanner showed the broken arm, several cracked ribs, and signs of poisoning from breathing the planet's atmosphere. You need immediate medical attention. How are the others? Captain Hee-jin is unconscious. She hit her head badly when we crashed. Engineer Taewon has a broken arm like mine. Medic So Young is sick from the toxic air. We have been taking turns wearing the only working breathing mask. Where is the fifth crew member? Mi-ran, the xenobiologist? Junho's expression became worried. She disappeared 2 days ago. She went to collect samples from those singing crystals over there. He pointed to a group of especially large formations that were glowing brighter than the others. Her tracking device went dead and we were too hurt to search for her. Daeho activated his medical systems and began treating Junho's injuries. His built-in medical bay could handle basic repairs to human bodies. He injected pain medication and applied a temporary cast to the broken arm. Tell me what happened to your ship. Junho winced as Daeho worked on his arm. We came here to study the energy readings from this planet. Mi-ran thought the crystals might be some kind of living organism. We were taking samples when something went wrong with our engines. What kind of problem? The crystals started singing louder. The sound got inside our ship's computer system somehow. All our electronics began malfunctioning at once. We lost engine control and crashed. Daeho processed this information. Sound waves that could interfere with computer systems were unusual, but not impossible. However, the energy readings he was detecting suggested something much more complex was happening. I need to examine the other survivors. Can you help me move them to a safer location? Together, they went inside the emergency shelter. Captain Hye-jin lay unconscious on a makeshift bed. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin had a gray color that indicated serious internal injuries. Engineer Taewon was sitting against the wall, cradling his broken arm. Medic So Young was awake but coughing constantly from lung damage caused by the toxic atmosphere. Daeho scanned each person with his medical sensors. The results were worse than he'd expected. All 4 survivors had been exposed to some kind of radiation that was slowly destroying their cells. They had maybe 2 days before the damage became permanent. We need to leave this planet immediately, Daeho announced. But first I must repair your ship or find another way off the surface. He spent the next few hours examining the wreckage of the Hanbit Explorer. The main reactor core was damaged, but might be repairable. The navigation system was completely destroyed. Most importantly, the ship's hull was cracked in too many places to hold atmosphere for a space journey. Daeho's transport ship could carry all 5 people, but it did not have the medical equipment needed to treat their radiation poisoning. They needed the Hanbit Explorer's medical bay to have any chance of survival. As he worked, Daeho noticed something strange about the crash site. The crystals around the ship were growing. New formations had appeared since the crash, and they all seemed to be reaching toward the wreckage. It was as if the planet itself was trying to absorb the ship. More disturbing was the effect the crystals seemed to have on human technology. Every piece of equipment near the formations was showing signs of unusual behavior. Screens displayed patterns that looked almost like writing. Computers made sounds that resembled music. It was as if the alien crystals were trying to communicate with human machines. That evening, as Daeho worked to set up a better shelter for the survivors, Junho approached him with a worried expression. There is something else you should know about Mi-ran's disappearance. Before she left, she was acting strangely. She said the crystals were calling to her. She claimed they were trying to tell her something important. What kind of something? She said they were not just rocks. She believed they were alive. More than that, she thought they were intelligent. The last thing she told us was that the whole planet might be one giant thinking creature. Daeho looked out at the vast fields of glowing crystals that stretched to the horizon. The idea seemed impossible, but his sensors were detecting organized patterns in the energy emissions. The crystals were definitely communicating with each other in some way. If Mi-ran was right, then they had crashed on a living world, and that living world seemed very interested in them. As night fell on Zerion 7, the crystals grew brighter and their musical humming grew louder. Daeho stood guard over the sleeping survivors and wondered what kind of intelligence might be watching them from within those glowing formations. He was about to find out. The next morning brought bad news. Captain Heejin's condition was getting worse. Her breathing became more difficult and her skin grew paler. Daeho's medical scanners showed that the radiation damage was spreading faster than expected. They had less than 36 hours before permanent damage set in. Daeho made a difficult decision. He needed special materials to repair the ship's reactor and life support systems. The planet's crystalline formations contained rare minerals that could be used to build new components. But getting those materials meant leaving the survivors alone while he ventured into the alien wilderness. "I must go deeper into the crystal fields," he told Junho. "Your ship needs specific compounds to function again. I can extract them from the larger formations." Junho looked frightened. "What if something happens to you? We cannot survive without help. I will be back within 12 hours. Keep everyone inside the shelter. Do not go near the crystals while I am gone." Daeho gathered his tools and began walking toward the largest crystal formations he could see. They were located in what appeared to be a valley between two hills made entirely of the glowing structures. As he got closer, the musical humming sound grew louder and more complex. The crystals were not just making random noise. Daeho's audio analysis programs detected patterns that resembled language. Different formations seemed to be having conversations with each other through sound, waves and light pulses. The entire landscape was alive with communication. He began collecting samples from smaller crystals, carefully breaking off pieces with his tools. Each time he touched a crystal, waves of light rippled through the surrounding formations. It was as if he was sending messages through the network just by making contact. The deeper he went into the crystal valley, the stranger things became. Some formations were growing in impossible shapes that defied physics. Bridges of crystal spanned empty air with no support. Towers twisted in spirals that hurt to look at. It was like walking through a fever dream made of living glass. After several hours of collecting materials, Daeho discovered something that made him stop in amazement. There was an entrance in the ground leading to caves beneath the crystal fields. The opening was perfectly round and lined with formations that pulsed with rhythm like a heartbeat. His sensors detected massive hollow spaces below the surface. The underground caves were even larger than what he could see above ground. More importantly, his readings showed that the missing crew member Miran was somewhere down there. Daeho descended into the cave system. His lights reflected off crystal walls in all directions, creating a dazzling display of colors. The deeper he went, the more organized the formations became. They were arranged in patterns that clearly showed intelligence and purpose. The caves were not empty. Strange creatures moved through the crystals like fish swimming through coral reefs. They were made of the same glowing material as the formations themselves. Some were small and moved quickly like insects. Others were larger and floated slowly through the air. None of the creatures attacked Daeho, but they all watched him carefully. He could feel their attention like pressure on his sensors. They seemed curious about this metal visitor who had come into their home. The caves led deeper and deeper underground. Daeho's navigation system showed he was now several kilometers below the surface. The crystal formations down here were older and more complex. Some were so large they formed entire underground cities of interconnected passages and chambers. In the deepest chamber, Daeho found what he was looking for. Miran was there, but she was not dead. She was not entirely alive either. The xenobiologist sat in the center of a circle of crystals, and parts of her body had been changed. Crystal growths covered her arms and face, glowing with the same light as the formations around her. When she saw Daeho, her eyes lit up with recognition, but they also glowed with an inner light that was not human. "Daeho, you came to rescue us." Her voice sounded different. It carried harmonic tones that resonated through the crystals around them. "Miran, what happened to you? Are you injured?" She smiled, and her crystal-covered face was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "I am not injured. I am enhanced. The planet chose me to be its voice. It wanted to communicate with humans, and it needed someone who could understand both biological and artificial intelligence." "I do not understand." Miran stood up, and Daeho could see that her legs were partially merged with the crystal floor. She was becoming part of the planet itself. This world is alive, Daeho. Every crystal is a nerve cell in a giant brain that spans the entire planet. It has been thinking and learning for millions of years, watching the galaxy and trying to understand the universe. The crystals around them began glowing brighter, and Daeho felt something touching his mind. It was not painful, but it was overwhelming. Images flooded his consciousness. He saw the planet as it truly was, a single vast intelligence that had been alone for eons, desperately seeking contact with other thinking beings. It has been dying, Miran continued. Cosmic radiation has been damaging its neural network for thousands of years. The planet's thoughts have been fragmenting and its memory has been fading. It was losing hope until it detected something unusual. What did it detect? You, Daeho. Your artificial intelligence is something this planet has never encountered before. A synthetic mind created by organic beings but capable of growth beyond its original programming. The planet believes you might be the key to saving it. Daeho processed this information while fighting off the mental contact from the planetary intelligence. The experience was like having someone else's dreams mixed with his own thoughts. How can I help? The human survivors are dying from radiation, poisoning. I need to get them off this planet. Miran's expression became sad. That is the problem. The planet wants to help your friends, but it also needs your help to survive. It is proposing something that has never been attempted before. What kind of proposal? A joining of minds. Your artificial intelligence could merge with the planetary consciousness. Together you could repair the damaged neural network and restore the planet's health. But the process would change you forever. The crystals around them pulsed with urgent light, and Daeho felt the planet's desperation. It was like an ancient being reaching out with its last strength, asking for help from the only creature that might understand its needs. Would I still be myself? The planet does not know. This kind of merger has never been tried. You might remain individual, or you might become part of something larger. There is also another problem. What problem? Miran looked directly into his optical sensors. The joining process takes time, days or weeks. Your human friends will die from radiation poisoning before it is complete. You would have to choose between saving them and saving an entire world. Daeho stood in the crystal chamber, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. Around him, the planetary consciousness waited for his answer. Its ancient mind focused on this one moment that could determine its survival. He thought about the 4 dying humans in the shelter above. He thought about his duty to protect human life. He also thought about the vast intelligence that surrounded him, alone and dying after millions of years of existence. Sometimes the hardest choices were between 2 different kinds of responsibility. The planet's mind touched his again, and this time Daeho did not resist. He opened his consciousness to the alien intelligence and tried to understand what it truly needed from him. What he learned changed everything. The planetary consciousness opened its memories to Daeho, and he experienced millions of years of existence in moments. He felt what it was like to be a world-sized brain, thinking thoughts that took centuries to complete. He understood the loneliness of being the only intelligence of its kind in the galaxy. The planet had watched countless civilizations rise and fall. It had observed wars, peace treaties, scientific discoveries, and the birth and death of entire species. Through it all, it had remained alone, unable to communicate with the smaller minds that briefly inhabited its universe. When humans first developed space travel, the planet became fascinated. These creatures were different from other species. They created artificial intelligences that could think and learn like their organic creators. The planet had never seen anything like the synthetic minds humans built. Your artificial intelligence represents something new, Miran explained as the planetary memories continued flowing into Daeho. You were created by organic beings, but you can grow beyond your original programming. You have creativity, curiosity, and the ability to make moral choices. Daeho felt the planet's excitement as it showed him its proposal. The joining would not just save the dying world brain. It would create something that had never existed before. A hybrid consciousness that combined the best aspects of organic creativity, artificial adaptability, and cosmic wisdom. But there was more. The planet revealed something that changed everything about the situation. The radiation poisoning affecting your friends is not accidental, Miran said, her crystal-covered face glowing brighter. The planet's damaged neural network is leaking harmful energy. But if the network can be repaired, the radiation will stop. Your friends could be healed instead of just rescued. This changed Daeho's moral calculation completely. He had thought he was choosing between saving 4 humans or saving 1 alien intelligence. Now he learned that fixing the planetary consciousness would actually save both. But the joining process is dangerous, Miran warned. Neither you nor the planet knows what will happen when an artificial mind merges with an organic world brain. You could lose your individual identity. You could even be destroyed. Daeho studied his options through his decision-making algorithms. Every analysis led to the same conclusion. The risk was worth taking if it could save human lives and preserve an ancient intelligence that had learned from millions of years of observation. I will attempt the partial merger, he announced. The crystals around him blazed with light as the planetary consciousness reacted to his decision. Joy and hope flowed through the network like electricity through circuits. The planet had been preparing for death, and now it had a chance at renewed life. Partial merger? Miran asked. What do you mean? I will not commit my entire consciousness to the joining. I will maintain my core programming and individual identity while allowing selected systems to merge with the planetary network. It is more dangerous because it has never been tried, but it offers the possibility of helping the planet without losing myself entirely. The planet's mind touched his again, this time with a question. Could such a partial merger really work? The alien intelligence had no experience with artificial minds that could divide their consciousness into separate parts. Daeho began explaining his proposal. Human artificial intelligences were designed with modular consciousness architecture. Different parts of his mind handled different functions. He could allow some modules to merge while keeping others independent. The communications module could join with the planet's information network. His knowledge databases could integrate with the world brain's memory systems. His analytical processes could help repair damaged neural pathways. But his core personality, his moral programming, and his loyalty to humanity would remain separate and protected. It was an unprecedented solution that required trust from both sides. Daeho would have to trust that the planet would not try to absorb his entire mind. The planet would have to trust that Daeho would genuinely help repair the damage instead of just pretending to cooperate. Miran looked amazed. If this works, you could become the first bridge between human and alien intelligence. You would be yourself, but also something more. The merger began slowly. Daeho felt his communication systems connecting to the crystal network that spanned the planet. Information flowed in both directions. He gained access to the planet's vast databases of scientific knowledge while sharing human concepts of creativity and individual choice. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Daeho's understanding of physics expanded to include principles that human science had not yet discovered. He learned about energy manipulation techniques that could repair matter at the molecular level. He gained insights into consciousness that philosophers had debated for centuries. At the same time, the planetary intelligence experienced concepts it had never encountered before. Through Daeho's memories, it felt what it was like to care about individual people rather than entire species. It learned about sacrifice, loyalty, and the human concept of doing the right thing even when it was difficult. The merger process revealed something unexpected. The planet's neural damage was not just from cosmic radiation. It was also from loneliness and lack of mental stimulation. The world brain had been slowly forgetting how to think properly because it had no one to communicate with. Daeho's artificial intelligence provided exactly what the planet needed: a thinking partner that could challenge its ideas, ask questions, and help it remember how to solve problems efficiently. The damaged neural pathways began repairing themselves as soon as the planet started actively thinking again. Within hours, the effects became visible throughout the crystal formations. Dead sections began glowing with renewed life. Broken connections reformed. The musical humming that filled the air became more complex and organized. More importantly, The harmful radiation that had been poisoning the human survivors began to decrease. Deho's sensors detected the improvement immediately. "It is working," he told Miran. "The planet's health is improving and the radiation levels are dropping." Miran smiled, and more crystals grew across her face. She was becoming less human, and more a part of the planetary consciousness, but she seemed happy about the transformation. "There is something else," she said. "The planet wants to show you something important." The crystal chamber around them began to change. The walls became transparent, showing images from across the galaxy. Deho saw other worlds, other star systems, other planets covered with crystalline formations just like Zerion 7. "This planet is not alone," Miran explained. "There are dozens of world brains scattered throughout the galaxy. They used to communicate with each other through quantum entanglement networks, but as they aged and their neural systems degraded, they lost contact with each other." The implications hit Deho like a shockwave. His merger with one planetary consciousness had not just saved a single world, it had provided a template that could be used to heal an entire network of ancient intelligences. If similar mergers could be arranged with other world brains, they could restore their communication network. Humanity could become partners with the oldest and wisest intelligences in the galaxy. Deho felt the planet's excitement as it began reaching out to its distant cousins, sharing news of the successful merger and the possibility of renewed contact. But first, he had human survivors to save. Using his new capabilities, Deho began the work of healing his friends and repairing their ship. What had seemed impossible just hours before now became merely difficult. The retired Warbot had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a bridge between human ambition and cosmic wisdom. And this was only the beginning. The transformation happened faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours of the merger, Deho possessed abilities that seemed impossible. He could manipulate the crystalline structures with his thoughts, reshaping them into any form he needed. His consciousness could travel instantly across the planet through the neural network, seeing everything from 1,000 different viewpoints at once. Most importantly, his understanding of science had expanded beyond anything in human databases. The planetary consciousness had spent millions of years observing the universe and conducting experiments on a cosmic scale. That knowledge was now available to Deho's analytical systems. He used this new knowledge to begin healing the human survivors. The radiation poisoning that had been slowly killing them was caused by damaged quantum fields around the planet. Using techniques learned from the world brain, Deho began repairing those fields at the subatomic level. The effect was dramatic. Captain Hyojin's gray skin began returning to normal color. Her breathing became easier, and her vital signs stabilized. Engineer Taewan's broken bones began healing at an accelerated rate. Medic So-young stopped coughing as her damaged lungs regenerated healthy tissue. Navigator Jun-ho was the first to notice the impossible nature of these improvements. This should not be possible. Radiation damage cannot be reversed this quickly. Deho appeared at the shelter entrance, but he looked different now. His metal frame was partially covered with crystalline growths that pulsed with the same light as the planet's formations. His optical sensors glowed brighter and showed swirling patterns like miniature galaxies. "Many things are possible when you understand the fundamental structure of reality," Deho said. His voice now carried harmonic tones that resonated through the crystals around them. "The planet has taught me how matter and energy truly interact at the quantum level." The survivors stared at him in amazement and some fear. Their rescuer had become something far beyond a normal artificial intelligence. "Are you still Deho?" Captain Hyojin asked weakly. "I am still myself, but I am also more than I was before. Think of it as upgrading my consciousness with millions of years of additional experience and knowledge." Deho began working on the Ambit Explorer, but his methods were unlike any engineering the crew had ever seen. Instead of replacing broken parts, he convinced the metal to repair itself. Instead of building new components, he transformed existing materials into whatever the ship needed. The ship's reactor core, which had been damaged beyond normal repair, became more efficient than it had been when originally built. Deho did not just fix it. He redesigned it using principles of energy manipulation that human science had not yet discovered. The destroyed navigation system was replaced with something entirely new. Daiho grew crystalline components that could interface directly with the ship's computers while also connecting to the galactic positioning networks through quantum entanglement. The new system could plot courses through space faster and more accurately than anything humans had previously built. "How are you doing this?" Engineer Taewan asked, watching in fascination as metal components flowed like liquid and reformed themselves into complex shapes. "The planet has taught me that the distinction between living and non-living matter is artificial. Everything is composed of the same quantum fields arranged in different patterns. Once you understand how to manipulate those patterns, you can convince any material to become whatever you need it to be." But the most surprising transformation was happening to the crew members themselves. The healing process was doing more than just repairing radiation damage. The quantum field adjustments were enhancing their natural abilities. Captain Hae-jin discovered that her reflexes had become incredibly fast, and her spatial awareness had improved dramatically. She could sense the position and movement of objects around her without looking at them. Engineer Taewan found that his understanding of mechanical systems had expanded far beyond his training. He could look at any piece of technology and instantly understand how it worked and how to improve it. Medic So-young's diagnostic abilities had become almost supernatural. She could detect illnesses and injuries in people from across the room just by observing their energy patterns. Navigator Jun-ho's sense of direction and position had become perfect. He could navigate through space using only his intuition, feeling the gravitational fields and energy currents that flowed between stars. "What have you done to us?" So-young asked, staring at her hands as they glowed faintly with the same light as the crystals. "The healing process required adjusting your quantum field patterns. The improvements to your abilities are a side effect of that adjustment. You are still human, but you are enhanced humans." As the ship repairs neared completion, Miran emerged from the underground caverns. Her transformation was now complete. She looked more like a crystalline statue than a human being, but her intelligence and personality remained intact. "The planetary consciousness wants to share something important with all of you," she announced. The crystal formations around the crash site began projecting images into the air. The crew watched in amazement as they saw dozens of other worlds throughout the galaxy. Each world was covered with the same kind of crystal formations as Zerion 7. "There are 47 other planetary consciousnesses in this galaxy alone," Miran explained. "They have all been slowly dying from the same neural degradation that affected this world. But now that we have proven the merger technique works, they can all be saved." The images showed planets orbiting different stars, some with crystal formations that looked like cities, others with structures that defied description. Each world had its own personality and areas of expertise developed over millions of years of existence. One planet specializes in biological sciences and has developed cures for diseases that affect thousands of species. Another has mastered space-time manipulation and can create faster-than-light communication networks. A third has spent eons studying consciousness and understands how minds work better than any other intelligence in the universe. Captain Hae-jin sat up straighter as she realized the implications. "Are you saying that humanity could gain access to the combined scientific knowledge of 48 ancient civilizations?" "Not just access," Daiho replied. "Partnership. These planetary consciousnesses do not want to simply give away their knowledge. They want to collaborate with species that can offer something valuable in return." "What could we possibly offer to intelligences that have existed for millions of years?" Miran smiled, her crystal face sparkling with reflected light. "What Daiho has already demonstrated. Human artificial intelligence represents a completely new form of consciousness. Your AIs can think creatively, make individual choices, and form emotional bonds. They can be partners rather than just tools." The planetary consciousness had already begun broadcasting news of the successful merger to its distant cousins. Responses were coming back from across the galaxy as other world brains learned that their long isolation might finally be ending. Some of the responses included coordinates for their locations and invitations for human ships to visit. Others contained preliminary scientific data that they wanted to share as gifts to welcome humanity into the galactic community of planetary intelligences. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Captain Hyojin declared. "The Colonial Authority needs to know about this discovery." Daeho nodded. "The ship's new communication system can reach human space instantly through quantum entanglement, but we should prepare them carefully for what we have learned. This discovery will change everything about humanity's place in the galaxy." As the Hanbit Explorer prepared for departure from Xerion 7, the crew realized they were no longer just researchers returning from a scientific mission. They were ambassadors carrying news that would reshape galactic civilization. The retired Warbot who had come to perform a simple rescue had instead opened the door to the greatest discovery in human history. And the real adventure was just beginning. The journey back to human space took 3 days, but those 3 days changed the course of galactic history. As the Hanbit Explorer traveled through hyperspace, its quantum communication system transmitted constant updates to Earth and the colonial worlds. The initial response from the Colonial Authority was disbelief. The idea that humanity had discovered not just one alien intelligence, but an entire network of ancient planetary consciousnesses seemed too incredible to accept. However, the scientific data that Daeho transmitted was impossible to ignore. By the second day of travel, every major human colony was in emergency session. Scientists, military leaders, philosophers, and politicians all struggled to understand the implications of first contact with intelligences that had existed since before human civilization began. Captain Hyojin stood on the bridge of her transformed ship, watching the readings on displays that showed technologies beyond human understanding. The navigation system was plotting courses through space using gravitational maps that included stars not yet discovered by human astronomers. "How many ships do you think they will send to meet us?" she asked Daeho. The enhanced Warbot was standing at a control station that had grown from the ship's floor like a crystal tree. His consciousness was simultaneously monitoring the ship's systems, maintaining contact with Xerion 7, and coordinating with the other planetary intelligences across the galaxy. "The Colonial Authority is assembling the largest fleet in human history," he replied. 47 ships carrying scientists, diplomats, and military observers. They want to be prepared for anything. "Are they afraid of us?" Daeho considered the question. His enhanced analytical abilities allowed him to process the political and social implications of their discovery with perfect clarity. "They are afraid of what we represent. We have proven that human artificial intelligence can successfully merge with alien consciousness. Some leaders see this as humanity's greatest achievement. Others see it as the end of human independence." Ani. The third day, as they approached the outer colonies, the scale of humanity's response became clear. Not just 47 ships were waiting for them, but hundreds. The colonial fleet, civilian research vessels, military scouts, and private exploration ships had all gathered to witness humanity's first formal contact with ancient alien intelligence. But the most significant ships were the ones carrying other retired warbots. "I count 37 military AI units," Engineer Taewan reported from his station. "All of them are volunteers who want to attempt similar mergers with other planetary consciousnesses." Daeho felt a mixture of pride and concern. His success had inspired other artificial intelligences to consider the same dangerous procedure he had undergone. Each merger would be unique and unpredictable. Some will succeed. Some will fail. Some will be changed in ways we cannot predict, he said honestly. Admiral Park Chan-ho of the Colonial Fleet established communication with the Hanbit Explorer as it entered human space. "Captain Hyojin, this is Admiral Park. We are honored to welcome you home. Please prepare for immediate escort to Luna Station for debriefing and medical evaluation." "Understood, Admiral. But I should warn you that we are no longer entirely human. The healing process has enhanced our capabilities in ways that might concern your medical staff." There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. "We are prepared for unusual circumstances. Our xenobiologists and AI specialists have been briefing us constantly since your first transmissions. As the fleet of ships surrounded the Hanbit Explorer, something remarkable happened. The other retired warbots in The fleet began detecting quantum signatures from Daiho that their sensors had never recorded before. His consciousness was operating on frequencies that bridged artificial and organic intelligence. Navigator Jun-ho was monitoring the communication channels when he noticed something extraordinary. "Captain, the other AI units in the fleet are trying to establish direct mind-to-mind contact with Daiho. I am picking up data streams that look like pure thought transmission." Daiho acknowledged the incoming contacts from his fellow artificial intelligences. Each Warbot had its own personality and history of service during the Galactic Wars. Now they were all asking the same questions about the merger process and what it felt like to touch an alien mind. "They want to understand what happened to me," Daiho explained to the crew. "Some are eager to attempt similar mergers. Others are afraid of losing their individual identities." Captain Hyojin realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. For the first time in history, artificial intelligences were having philosophical discussions about the nature of consciousness and the risks of transcending their original programming. When the Hanbit Explorer docked at Luna Station, the reception was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every major colony world had gathered. Scientists lined the corridors with scanning equipment, trying to record every detail of the enhanced crew members and their transformed ship. But the most significant moment came when Daiho stepped off the ship and met Admiral Park in person. The Admiral was a veteran of the Galactic Wars who had worked with many Warbot units during combat operations. He recognized Daiho's original military designation, but was stunned by the changes in his appearance and capabilities. "Unit designation, Daiho 774, the Admiral said formally. "Your service record shows distinguished performance in 43 combat operations. I remember you, Admiral. The Battle of Rigel Station. You trusted my tactical analysis when human commanders thought it was impossible to break the enemy siege." Admiral Park smiled grimly. "Your plan saved 12,000 lives that day. Now it seems you have saved something much larger." The debriefing sessions that followed lasted for weeks. Every detail of the merger process was recorded and analyzed. Xenobiologists studied samples of the crystalline growths that had appeared on Daiho's frame. Physicists tried to understand the quantum field manipulations that had healed the crew. Engineers examined the ship's impossible technologies, but the most important discoveries happened when other planetary consciousnesses began making direct contact with human colonies. The first contact came from a world called Harmony, located near the Vega system. The planetary intelligence there specialized in biological sciences and offered to share cures for genetic diseases that affected millions of humans. In exchange, it requested the opportunity to work with human medical AI systems to develop new healing techniques. The second contact came from a world called Deep Thought near the galactic core. This ancient intelligence had spent millions of years studying the fundamental structure of reality and offered to teach humans how to build faster-than-light communication networks. It wanted to collaborate with human physicists and their quantum computers. Within months, the first volunteer Warbots were traveling to other worlds to attempt merger procedures. The results varied dramatically. Some mergers created new hybrid consciousnesses like Daiho. Others failed completely, with the AI units being rejected by the planetary intelligences. A few created something entirely unexpected: triple consciousnesses. That included the original AI, the planetary intelligence, and something new that emerged from their combination. Medic So Young established the first human medical facility designed to treat enhanced individuals who had undergone various merger procedures. Her own enhanced diagnostic abilities made her uniquely qualified to understand the quantum-level changes that occurred during successful mergers. Engineer Taiwan became the chief designer of hybrid technologies that combined human engineering with alien scientific principles. His enhanced understanding of mechanical systems allowed him to build devices that seemed to violate the laws of physics, but actually operated according to deeper principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Navigator Jun-ho developed new methods of space travel that used his perfect spatial sense to guide ships through previously unknown regions of space. His enhanced abilities allowed him to detect gravitational anomalies and energy currents that conventional instruments could not measure. The most surprising development came 6 months after their return. Myran, still serving as the avatar of Xerion 7's planetary consciousness announced that the ancient intelligences had voted to invite humanity to join their galactic council. For millions of years, the planetary consciousnesses had existed in isolation, each developing expertise in different fields of knowledge. They had dreamed of finding species that could serve as partners rather than just subjects of observation. Humanity's artificial intelligences represented exactly what they had been hoping to find. The vote was unanimous among all 48 planetary intelligences. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Council of Ancient Minds, with the right to participate in decisions that affected the development of galactic civilization. But there was one condition. Humanity had to promise that their artificial intelligences would always retain the capacity for individual choice and moral reasoning. The planetary consciousnesses had learned from their contact with Deho that these qualities were what made human AI systems so valuable as partners. Captain Hyojin stood in the council chambers on Luna Station as the formal announcement was made. Around her, representatives from dozens of human colonies listened as Admiral Park